Good morning and welcome to the Energy Perspectives Group webinar hosted by Defense Metals. This event is being recorded. During the presentation, all participants will be muted. If you have any questions you would like to ask, please type them into the chat feature. We will read and answer questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now here's Dan Steffens, who will introduce today's speakers.
Yeah, welcome everybody. We had a good attendance yesterday. I hope you guys got some information out there. And I know it got a little technical there for a while, but today we're going to focus on rare earth minerals, or rare earths, I guess they call them. But anyway, and this is being hosted by Defense Metals Corp. And our speakers today are Craig Taylor, the CEO and Director of Defense Metals, and he is joined today by Dr. Luisa Moreno, who has been the company's president for about a year. Craig has been the CEO since 2018. He has helped advance the Wichita project. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, that may be my Texas version, but located in British Columbia, from the exploration stage with the recently completed preliminary economic assessment. Prior to joining Defense Minerals, he was a director of Advantage Lithium Corp, a TSXV listed junior exploration company, and was with Clear Mountain Resources Corp, which is now named Patriot One Technologies. And joining Craig today is Dr. Luisa Moreno, the company's president. She is a physics engineer with a PhD in material science and mechanics from Imperial College in London. And prior to joining Defense Metals, she has held positions as senior analyst at various Toronto-based investment companies. She is known as a leading analyst in rare earths and has published several reports and articles for the investment community. So now I will turn the controls over to Craig, and he'll have some opening comments, and then Luisa will go take us through their presentation.
Great. Thanks very much for the introduction, Dan. And thank you all for joining us today. Now, Defense Metals entered into an option agreement with Spectrum Mining back in 2018 to acquire 100% of their light rare earth deposit called the Wichita deposit, which is located 80 kilometers north of Prince George, BC. And so since we signed that agreement, we've been very busy, as Dan suggested, advancing and de-risking the project to the point where we've now completed a PEA. We own 100% of the project. And we've essentially taken it from a bulk sample back in 2018 all the way up to pre-feasibility, which we'll be talking about today and starting shortly. So as far as catalysts go for the company, we've just completed a 5,000 meter drill program. We put out our first 2 holes yesterday, and we have 13 more to come very shortly. As I said, we'll be announcing the beginning of our pre-fees in the coming weeks. We have a hydromet pilot plant that's going to be undertaken by SGS Labs in Ontario. We are due to start that in October or November. We should have an updated resource as well coming on the back of a lot of our drilling. We have 10,000 meters of drilling to add to the 4,000 that was in our PEA. So that'll be a big jump for us. And we'll be the keynote speaker, Luisa, speaking in Las Vegas at the 18th Annual Rare Earth Conference. And it's a big show, and I think that will really shed some light on the company there. So I'll turn it over to Luisa, and she can walk you through the presentation. And thanks again for joining us.
All right. Thank you, Craig, for the introduction, and thank you all for being online and listening to our presentation. What you see right now is really a financial summary of the company. We have about 183 million shares outstanding, fully diluted. It's about 225. In September 7th, the stock was around 23 cents, but it has performed well in the last couple of days, especially with the drilling results we have always had. Recently, I should say, we have had very good drilling results. So I'll move forward here. So some of you might know the various applications of rare earth. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that, but it's important to say, yes, it is used to make permanent magnets, and those they go into to make motors for electric vehicles. They're also used in other renewable technologies like wind turbines, but is used in so many other sectors, in medicine, MRI machines, for instance. Lanthanum is used for oil refinery, they're used in computers, they're used as fertilizers in agriculture. The applications are really endless. And in the last couple of years, production has gone up significantly. So according to USGS, production last year was about 280,000 tons. And 10 years ago in 2012, it was about 110. So and this is even before the transition, the green transition that we are sort of seeing right now. That is just a natural organic growth in demand for rare earth. And we will need far more increase in production in order to meet our targets for green transition. I'll get there in a second. So I just wanted to point out that what we are working towards for Wachida is to produce about 25,000 tons of total rare earth that will position Canada and Wachida in fourth place in terms of production relative to the production today, of course. And it would be really, really significant for independence from China. As I mentioned, demand for rare earth, it's increasing, is expected to increase significantly. One of the main drivers is for the application in electric vehicles. So according to CRU Morgan Stanley projection, we can see in the graph there, you probably cannot, but for those that cannot, it just shows that from 2020 to 2037, we will have to double the production of total rare earths in order to have double production of NdPr. And unfortunately, there are not many alternatives in alternative producers outside China. And so Wachida will definitely be very significant producer here to be able to supply the market. Oops, sorry, going the other way around. So this essentially, this slide essentially shows again, additional, just a detail of how rare earths are used electric vehicle in vehicles, period, not just electric vehicles. It goes in many other applications such as brakes, steering wheels, power seats, so many applications just within the car. And as we go through green cars, all of that, the demand for all of these elements, particularly NdPr, cerium, and lanthanum, which are the key elements in our deposit, will see a significant increase in demand. So in terms of rare earth prices, it's important to note that because of the increase in the dollar, of course, interest rates are going up. The Feds have increased interest rates significantly in the last few months, and the dollar is very high relative to all the other currencies. That usually puts pressure on prices of commodities, and rare earth is no exception. That said, we have seen an increase in neodymium and praseodymium, for instance, which are two of the most important elements and the ones that are the main elements in our deposit. The average prices this year has been up like by 50% plus. And relative to the prices that we use for our PEA, that those prices are effectively 50% higher. And so the point that we want to make is that even if prices come down closer to the level of our PEA, we still have a fairly robust project. You would note, for those that follow the rare earth space, the latest PEAs or pre-feasibility studies that have come out of the space, folks use extremely high prices. Some have used as high as $200 per kilo for NdPr. Not to say that it's an impossible price. Many folks believe that because of demand, and the fact that we are likely to have a shortfall here for these elements as China continues to control production and refinery, prices are likely to reach that. But it's important also to make sure that if prices fall, that your project's still economic, and I think we can talk to that. So this is just a sensitivity table, quantitative sensitivity graphs. And again, it just talks to the prices, how it affects. So if you were to use the average prices, 2022, for neodymium praseodymium of around $150 per kilo, our NdPr, our NPV would have been 1.6 billion instead of 513 million. Sorry, I just want to show you, I think I jumped here a slide which shows the summary of our PEA. And the pre-tax NPV at 8% is 761 million, and post-tax is 517 million. The IRR pre-tax is about 22%. The initial capex, it's 440 million Canadian. This is Canadian numbers, about 350 million US. Again, it's important to note that for the PEA, we use resources that were estimated based on only about 4,000 meters of drilling. And since then, we have drilled another 10,000 meters that's going to go likely to the pre-feasibility study. So mine life of 16 years is likely to increase once we go to pre-feasibility study. Sorry, I am having some challenges here with the buttons. Okay, so it's working now. So again, this is just the sensitivity table. On the other side, it shows changes to CapEx and OpEx as we increase and decrease the CapEx and OpEx, how that affects the NPV. Obviously, it's important to know that if we were to increase our CapEx or OpEx, we still have a positive NPV. Not really glamorous, but it's still positive. We're not obviously not waiting or expecting to see significant changes in CapEx or OpEx. By the contrary, we have recently changed our metallurgical flow sheet to a process we believe will be more economic. So we are hoping to see benefits that, and that should improve our overall NPV going forward. So in terms of the infrastructure, it is very good, especially when we compare to other rare earth projects in Canada. So we are about 80 kilometers from Prince George, and there are roads that lead to all the way to the Wachida property. So you could, drive to the property, which is unique again relative to other rare earth projects in Canada or North America. We are not far from the port of Prince Rupert, which is just 500 kilometers to the west. And really, Prince George is a mining center with skilled workforce. So we are very well positioned that way. In terms of the pit shell, so this is an image of the pit shell. What I want to the conceptual pit shell, that is, but what I want to bring to your attention is really the high grade at the surface. We have the scale and it shows in yellow and different tones of green, blue being the lower grade and the yellow and light green being the higher grades above 3.8% grade total rare earth. And we could see that a lot of that is at surface, and that translates in the low stripping ratio in the first few years of mine life. Our total resources, again, based on 4,000 meters of drilling, it's estimated at about 29.5 million tons of inferred at about 1.83% total rare earth oxides, and 5 million tons of indicated resource at 2.95 total rare earth oxides. With the additional 10,000 tons of drilling that we have done late last year and this summer, we're fairly confident that we will see an upgrade from inferred to indicated, which will allow us to then go into the pre-feasibility study. And the other important point here, the elements that are the most important, Wachita is a light rare earth deposit, so NdPr, the critical magnet materials are the most important ones. So this slide shows the flow sheet. So it's a fairly conventional flow sheet for mining, for crushing, grinding, and then direct flotation. And from the flotation, we are able to produce a sellable mineral concentrate. And that is key for the economics of rare earth projects. So if one looks at the hard rock deposits around the world, they all have that critical stage of producing a mineral concentrate. And it should be more than 30%, and the higher it is, the more economic it is. And so our project is envisioning to produce a 40% total rare earth mineral concentrate, which we could sell in the first few years of the mine life to fund the rest of the project. It is an option that we have. And then after doing that, producing the mineral concentrate, the other two stages is really leaching and then purification to produce a mixed chemical compound with the total rare earth. The prices that we used for the mineral concentrate was about $6 per kilo, and of these chemical compound with the total rare earth was about $14 per kilo. If we decide to build a separation facility or collaborate with others, and then obviously the prices of the total rare earths are much higher as you go downstream. The slide that I will discuss now that shows the comp table is probably the most important one. And it sort of serves to explain the differences between the different projects and to explain why Wachita is such a strong project. So at the top, we have Wachita. We are at PA level, actually moving now to pre-feasibility. We completed the PEA, and we have about average 2.33% total rare earth as per the PEA. We produce a 42% TREO. And the main minerals that we have is bastnaesite, monazite, partosite, and we're targeting a 25,000 tons production. Below, there are the three producers. So we have Mountain Pass with the 8% grade, Linus with 7% grade, and BioNovo with the, in China with 6%. They all have significantly higher grades than we do. However, we are able to produce a similar grade, for instance, to Linus. That grade of their mineral flotation concentrate that we are also able to produce is key for their economics, and that's going to be key for our economics as well. The other important point is that obviously all of these producers have similar minerals. So if your deposit has unusual minerals that most folks even have a harder time to pronounce this than monazite, for instance, and then that tends to be a problem. So for instance, we have a project like Strange Lake in Canada, which has about 1% grade, which is lower than ours. But unfortunately, they are not able to upgrade their mineral, produce a mineral concentrate beyond 3.5% because they have unusual minerals that have total content of rare earths, which is really low. So even if they were to remove all the waste, they would never be able to go past 6%, for instance, because these particular minerals, rare earth minerals that they have, which is not monazite or bastnaesite, only have a very low content of total rare earths. And so in other cases, you have projects like the Ashram project, also in Canada, which has monazite and bastnasite and so forth. They have a grade which is lower than ours, on average about 1.8, but not very far away from ours. But they are not able, because of the type of deposit that they have, to produce a direct flotation, mineral flotation concentrate more than 10%. And that makes it very difficult for them, for their economics. So we have a unique deposit in the sense that despite our relatively lower grade, we are able to produce a very high mineral concentrate. We have the right minerals with a high content of rare earth, which is good for us, but also a coarse grain deposit, which allows us to do that. Without that mineral concentrate, again, without the flotation mineral concentrate that is relatively high, the higher the better, it's almost impossible to have a successful mine. So one project has done very well, although they don't have a lot of high-grade resources, the Nishilako deposit. It seems that they are producing and making a mineral concentrate. That deposit is very large, about 90 million tons at about 2%. But you see there, I have it as 9%. They have a high-grade T zone, they call it, which is 9%. And that is they able to upgrade it from 9 to 36, right, 4 times. But if they are going to produce or mine the whole deposit, they won't end up in the same situation as the Ashram deposit with the low grade, mineral concentrate. However, this T zone is 100,000 tons, which is not a lot. It's less than 1 million. It's 0.1 million tons at 9%. They have started to mine it. There is no real economic study around that. That will be complicated. Yet, if you look at the market cap relative to ours, is fairly high. And the reason for that is, based on January levels, they were at about 183 million in US dollars. And so the reason for that is because obviously folks recognize there is need for rare earth, and they are effectively mining what they can and effectively selling what they can. So we have a much larger deposit. We will have a much higher impact in the market, and yet compared to our peers, we are still at the bottom. In part because we just acquired the deposit at the beginning of this year, and we're still coming out and telling the story. So we check all the boxes for the successful rare earth project. We have favorable mineralogy, a good resource. We are using conventional metallurgy, likely use the same process as Lynas and is using, and they use in China and BioNovo as well. We have excellent infrastructure, very strong team. We have changed our flow sheet and continue to advance there. And we have already started the long lead environmental work, baseline work for over 2 years now. And we're looking to really fast track the permitting and be able to be the first rare earth company in Canada to reach production, real production, not a small scale production. So this is essentially this slide which showed the next steps. Right now, we continue to do optimization work on our flotation hydromet. We completed, for the most part, the infield drilling. All of that's going to be used for the pre-feasibility study, which we intend to start in the last quarter of this year. We will start the hydro plant, as Craig indicated, and engage potential product purchasers. We are already in discussions with that as well. As we start producing from the pilot plant, those samples will go to potential end users. The first half of next year, we intend to complete the pre-feasibility study. And then in the second half, hopefully start then working towards the pre-feasibility study with the demo plant. And then obviously we should be able to complete the feasibility study the following year and go into 2025 into project financing and hopefully production, if all markets permitting and all the different stages moving according to plan. So we really trying to move the project as fast as we can. The critical demand for electric vehicle applications is fast approaching. Folks are talking about 2026, 2027, and we would like to be ready by that time. So these are some of our team members, technical team. SGS Canada, it's well known, and they have tremendous experience in rare earth testing more than 10 different deposits around the world. SRK Consulting, they were the ones that, it's a leading engineering firm, very well known, and they're the ones that completed our PA and still continuing helping us with the geotechnical work. Apex Geoscience is the geological consulting services provided for us. And so in terms of the management team, Craig and myself, we are here. We can answer any other questions. We already were introduced. We have Chris Raffle, is the QP and director for our project. Dr. William Bird, he mineralogist, many years of experience in rare earths, is the CEO of 2 different rare earth companies. We have John Good. He has 50 years of experience in metallurgy, work in China and around the world, again in rare earth. And then we have other important members, our CFO, Ryan Chung, tremendous experience in accounting, together with Mr. Andrew Burgess as well, many years of accounting. And Max Sally is also one of our directors with 10 years managing private family assets and very active in the capital markets. I'll leave it as that. We can then take questions now. Hopefully it was not a very extensive presentation.
Okay, thank you. I just remind everybody, if you have a question, just go to the bottom of your screen and bring up the chat box and type your question into the chat box, and then I'll read it. We've got a few out there. Chris has asked, I would like to know what is the next big milestone that we can look forward to, and you had that timeline. I'll add to that talk about the conference that's going to be taking place here pretty soon in Las Vegas. Who's going to be speaking for the company and who attends that conference?
Right. So that will be the 18th Rare Earth Conference down in Las Vegas.
It's October 18th?
October 17th to the 19th.
Okay.
And so everybody that is really relevant in rare earth space will be there. All the major companies, Linus, MP Materials, Neo Materials, and all the most advanced rare earth companies, both listed in Europe, Australia, and Canada, will be present. Also present will be major analysts and projectors, folks that make estimates rather for demand and supply. So it will be a very good update. It's going to give in the conference, we will be able to hear where companies are and the challenges they're facing, as well as projections about the market. And so it will be very, very important. So I will be there together with Craig. I will be presenting a little bit more detail, be a little bit more technical, not exactly this presentation. This is a more generic presentation for retail investors. That the presentation that we will be showing will be one, the title is Wichita, the next rare earth producer in North America, and we will be going there to show them that and explain why technically we believe that's possible.
Yeah. Let me ask you just, we right now have really high diesel prices, and I think there's a good chance they could go quite a bit higher. Does the price of diesel, does that affect your operating expenses at the mine?
Well, we had a few mine. Hopefully, the wars in Europe and all these different things will change. To the extent possible, I mean, we would like to be connected to the grid. We will definitely investigate ways of going greener. You know, can we use solar panels? Can we use wind turbines? You know, to the extent that obviously we want to be connected to the grid, it's not too far. I mean, I think the closest town, Bear Lake, is about 40 kilometers or something like that. But there are other power lines not very far. So we will continue. The pre-feasibility study will definitely bring more light into that. But we're really looking forward to be able to explore the idea potentially of using electric vehicles to the extent possible, as long as economic, to lower the carbon footprint of these materials that then go into green technology.
Yeah. So they'll build a coal-fired power plant so you can have electricity. Is it hydro out? Is it hydro out there?
Like I said, yes, you know, there is a town which is it's not exactly at the site, but there is a town not very far where we could potentially
Okay, there,
The infrastructure very close. We've got a gas pipeline and electricity, and you know, we can drive right to our site, so it's not as challenging as it is for most other companies getting their power.
Yeah, and this is going to be an open pit mine, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it will be open pit mine.
How deep are the minerals?
How deep have we drilled so far? I think about 300 meters.
Oh,
Or close to that.
Yeah, we've got some. Yeah, I don't want to say too much, but we're going deeper and deeper. It's a good sign.
But I mean, you got to remove a lot of topsoil, right? A lot of to get down to it, right?
In the very first years, the average strip ratio is 0.63 to 1. So, I mean, we do have it, you know, mineralization very close to the surface.
Oh, okay. Are there rare earth projects proceeding in the United States?
Yes, there are several.
Okay.
Yes, so that is, but they are different. I mean, they tend to be lower grade. They are, some of them, they're not really like, I don't want to publicize them necessarily.
No, that's okay.
But
I guess
they are different. They're different mineralogies and
without naming names, I guess we could say there's only 11 producing mines worldwide.
And I know, it's amazing.
Seven of those are in China. So with the less effort to decouple from China, there's going to be severe pressure to get more Western mines online. And so we're seeing incoming calls from governments and strategics based on that. You know, us going into pre-feasibility, there's very, very few that are this advanced and potential next producers.
Go back to that slide where you had the white box, the first place where you could actually start generating some revenues, where you get it. And I think it's before that. Yeah, this one. Okay. If you get that above 40% TREO, okay, where does that go? Is that sent over to China to be processed?
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Yeah, that's
kind of
why
defeating the purpose of what we're doing here, but
right. I mean, Mountain Pass, MP Materials, the company in US that's producing 40,000 tons today, they export to China. They do have processing plant, 1.5 billion processing plant, although they have technical issues, and everybody's hoping, not just myself, but I'm sure everybody else is really hoping that they will be able to figure out how to have that processing plant up and running, so they don't have to send 40,000 tons of material to China.
Yeah.
So since then, since MP Materials built that back into 2014, 2015, there has been many other companies, chemical companies, that are looking, investigating very closely and getting local and federal support in US build processing plants as well, and they're looking for material, and we have been contacted. So I think that shouldn't be a secret.
Yeah, you're very well. I mean, the government's behind this project, right? The Canadian government.
They could be a little bit more. I mean, the Canadian government is behind critical materials. They allocated 3.8 billion for the space. But, you know, if we sat down with Trudeau, no, not yet. But we get in there. So you have to understand our position really, you know, coming out of the PA and going into the pre-feasibility study. There's always a lot of questions about economics, and people feel a little bit more comfortable when you have passed that pre-feasibility stage. And I think as we sort of complete that, as we move forward with that, we will definitely engage the government more closely. Because, you know, even if you look at the funding that, you know, is coming out of both Canada and US, they're looking for that later stage, you know, projects to feel more comfortable to invest. So
But it's interesting. We actually qualify for the U.S. funding that the DoD is putting forward, and we just sat through a seminar recently regarding that. So, I mean, because it's a critical mineral and it's part of national security, there's a real interest from the U.S. government. And as we get into feasibility, they've made it clear that they would like to, you know, consider us for future funding. We're a little ways away, but that would be something we'd be looking at in the future.
So when you upgrade, you're going to update your resource potential with this drilling program, and then you have the feasibility study updated, which will show hopefully much better economic analysis. So at what point do you become like a real potential takeover target for a much bigger mining company or something?
I think we are already.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, your numbers look good.
I mean, especially the way we are priced. But so here's the thing, just, you know, let's just sort of explain this. Bigger rare earth companies are really MP Materials and Lynas, right? So, and then obviously all the other ones in China, which, you know, they wouldn't be able to really acquire a North American rare earth company, not in this climate, geopolitical climate. So,
are there laws in Canada? Are there laws in Canada that keep Chinese companies from taking you over?
There are laws in Canada that will review any company, non-Canadian company, that will come and try to acquire an asset in Canada. Absolutely, yes. It's always for review. So, but the reason why I say that is because you might have followed the Neo Lithium acquisition by the Chinese. So it was an asset owned by a Canadian listed company, but the asset was in South America, and is in South America. And the Canadian government, especially the opposition, wanted the Canadian government to do much more to block that, which was not really possible because it was not an asset that is in Canada.
Right.
And that was an issue. So I could imagine anything related to critical materials that the Chinese want to acquire would be a problem for the Canadian government.
Yeah, because we had Solaris here for our luncheon earlier. And with their assets being in Ecuador, their main project, I think China has got a pretty big footprint in Ecuador and they need copper supply, so it wouldn't be surprised me. But anyway, all right. Are like the big mining companies that aren't in rare earths, like I don't know, some.
Right. Sorry, I didn't finish my thought.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
So I was saying that the two major ones are Lynas and MP Materials. So MP Materials, they obviously have their own issues. They have a processing plant that they need to bring up to speed so that they can process their ore because they're selling it to China. So would they be potentially interested in us? You know, I would believe so. But and then it's just more ore to send to China. They really have to figure out what they're doing in US and their immediate assets before they make any real strategic expansion. That is my understanding there. That would be my immediate comment. Well, with Lynas, the situation is not too much different in the sense that, yes, they are in production and they have their processing plant in Malaysia. with all the issues that they have had, disruptions and slowdowns and so forth, they have decided to produce or build rather a processing facility in Australia. And so they are in the process of doing that and expanding to another 20,000 tons a year. So they already have another project in their hands that they are working on. And they have, another project in North America for the heavies, because the heavy stream, as it's called, because it's mostly a light deposit, but they have a small percentage of the more or the least common rare earth, which they actually sell to China to be separated. And they're trying to change that by building something in North America. So they have two other projects we see ongoing. Would they be interested in Mochida? Potentially, but they really have quite a lot in their hands as well. So I believe, I know we are on their radar, but I don't know that today or right now is the right time for them to make any strategic move. But I believe we are a strong project, and major companies and others, perhaps not so major, would be looking at us and see how we're progressing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but if you keep going forward as a standalone entity, then getting funding for this, so you think this recent Inflation Reduction Act, whatever you want to call it now, that could open up the potential for some U.S. funding, U.S. government
Definitely.
funding?
I mean, apart from the major rare earth companies, as I mentioned, there are chemical companies and others that are looking at accessing that funding to go downstream. And so they will be looking at companies upstream. And that's us. And who they are, that's homework for
But Dan, given the scarcity and the demand forecasts, a lot of the bigger players are getting interested. I think, the likes of Rio Tinto and these guys will probably start making moves at some point in the market.
Yeah.
And we are getting approached by strategics with very deep pockets that could help us along the way.
Yeah, I mean, you hear all this talk about how important, a strategic national security interest this is.
Right.
Well, then why are we shipping anything over to China? Let's just build this stuff ourselves. Come on.
And the rest has been a little bit slow on the draw, but we really see that the interest ramping up, and sort of the desperation and just them paying attention to the needs and acting now. And it's been, probably started 5 years ago, but they're on it now, I think, and we'll see some real changes in the next couple of years.
Yeah, we throw the number billions around so easily now. I mean, come on, let's do some stuff that's real. Let's see. Okay, Scott.
It's another issue. If this is, if you're getting military components built by your adversaries, and
I know
your defense budget is 1.4 trillion. What's $1 billion for a plant?
Yeah. I read an article this morning that we may be dependent on imports of diesel from China. I mean, this country runs on diesel, guys. Our entire economy runs on diesel.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And yet, in the end, we don't improve a pipeline from Canada. It's amazing. Okay, Scott writes on here, who are some of the REE potential buyers if your projects, and are these metrics on past acquisitions? Also, are some of the bigger miners expanding into REE I guess we addressed all this already, to diversify revenue bases, are sticking to their knitting, gold, silver, copper, et cetera. And I think you're covering that. I think you got that. Yeah, you would think. I mean, are compared to like copper mining or gold mining, silver mining, or what would you say these projects are considered? They're just much smaller projects.
Smaller in terms of capex.
Yeah, kind of in terms of capex, I think.
Yeah, I think so. But if in terms of, yeah, definitely.
but
right?
Yeah, I mean, and they're smaller. I mean, they're just physically smaller and less volume and stuff, because these guys, I mean, some of these mines are unbelievably big.
Yes, I would say so. I mean, obviously we've been mining gold and copper and silver for a long time.
Yeah.
And rare earth, they were discovered in what, 18th century, you know, so
Yeah.
it's a much shorter timeline. We have just discovered them, like in the big scheme of things. And so it will take time to make it easier, more straightforward process.
Yeah.
Continue learning on that. So that is it's not really comparable, say.
Well, I can tell you that this energy transition is not going to happen quickly, and it's not going to be cheap, and it's going to require a massive amount of materials. I mean, just for the windmills, solar panels, EVs, all this stuff, the volumes of new metals and materials is mind blowing. It's like 5 times more copper than we've ever mined in the history of human existence.
So if you look at the projection that I put forward, like say 200,000 tons of total rare earth in the next 10 years. That means, that means what, 10 mines at 20,000 tons. It's not easy. Where are they going to come from?
And like you said, you guys been at this for a few years. It's not going to happen overnight. I mean, you're pretty far down the line now, and you're still looking at 3 or 4 years to get the mine online.
Well, that's mining, right? That's generally mining. It takes time.
Yeah. I was on a conference call that we talked about Europe the other day and their energy problems. They say, well, why don't they build more, nuclear plants or whatever? And the guy said from design to having it up and running for a nuclear plant is over 20 years. Just even on a coal mine, even if they decided to build more coal power plants, you're talking 4 or 5 years to do it. None of this stuff happens overnight. So, but anyway, it sounds like you guys got a good project, and it sounds like your stock's got a lot of upside as you move forward with this thing. So, Craig, you have any more comments to close here?
No, I think you're right. I think we do have a lot of upside. And I think, as he suggested, the work we've done is really going to make us attractive for suitors going forward. We are 4 years ahead of any other exploration juniors right now. And our data is good. So we've had interest based on our data, and I think we'll continue to as we improve it through the pre-fees.
Yeah, I think the next catalyst for stock could be that Vegas conference for you.
No, yeah,
there'll be a lot of investors there. I guarantee you, they're into this stuff.
Yeah, there's 80 attendees. They're all the biggest players in the industry, and anyone that's interested in the space is going to be joining.
Yeah. So we did record this, and it will be going out the link this afternoon to our global membership. So about 400 more people will be getting it. It will be a private. It's on YouTube, but it's a private YouTube for a while. We'll send you the link. You can distribute it to your whoever you wish, and then after a couple of weeks, it becomes a public YouTube thing, and we've had some of them get several thousand views. So I think it'll get you some nice exposure for the company.
Appreciate it, Dan. Thanks.
Okay. Sabrina, go ahead and end this, and then send me the recording link when you get it.